Are we recording?
Yes.
See, to email her the package. Good afternoon. This is Monday, June 3rd, 2024 at 4 p.m. This is the City of Liberty Lake Parks and Arts Commission monthly meeting, and my name is Nancy Hill. We'll start today's meeting by going through the roll call. Nancy Hill, present. David Heimbach.
Here.
Laura Frank.
Present via Zoom.
Katie Ferris. Katie's not here yet. John Barr.
Present.
Noelle Ofterson Laparco. I know she's having some technical difficulties and should be on Zoom shortly. Bob Schneidmiller.
Present.
Joni Hay.
Present.
Allison Pegram.
Present.
Hi, Allison. Staff today is Jen Camp, Mikkel Stevens, and our city administrator, Mark McAvoy. We'll start the meeting by looking at the May 6, 2024 meeting minutes. If everyone's had a chance to look at them, is there any corrections or additions? Sitting again. Please let the record show that Katie's here.
Yes.
I move to place in as is.
Second. We have a motion to approve the minutes as written and seconded by Joni. I didn't hear where the voice came from. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please show the meeting minutes are approved. Do we have any citizen comments today? Evan, can you let me know if there's anyone online? All right, no citizen comments in person or online. So we will move into our unfinished and new business, starting with the Trailhead Art Wall. I've been in contact with the art teachers at Ridgeline High School, and as I mentioned before, they're excited about the project. And they have sent, I believe it's 5 pieces of art, which you can see on the screen now, which are the first of their selections. I believe there's going to be 6 pieces of art on the gallery wall that they are designing. So they have one more coming in. They've really worked with the students and been excited about the project. Additionally, to the art that you see on the screen, they've recommended some frames to purchase that we can use and change out art every year because we're planning on making this an annual rotation. And the teachers really like that the art would come out at the end of the school year because then they have a chance to know their students and the capabilities. The theme this year, if you recall, was Pacific Northwest. It was pretty general and the students have really done well. I mean, this art here are just phenomenal. So, do we have a picture of the frames on the gallery wall that we can pull up? They're designing the gallery wall and they'll have some vertical and some horizontal. And then they'll work with the students to get the art that would go in that. So once we set the picture frames on the wall, that's how it will always be. It will just, different art will switch out. So she's pulling that up so we can take a look. These are the frames and they have matting capabilities there. We can get some mats, but they can make different mats to accommodate whatever the size of the student art is. So they're recommending the purchase of these frames. They come in 4 packs. So we get 2 packages for 8 frames. So if something got damaged, then we'd have a replacement frame. And that's how they see them being laid out on the wall. And I don't know about you, but I'm thrilled that we have art people doing this. That's beautiful. And there's the picture of the frames. It's just an Amazon order that the city can do. What does everybody think about this? Are we ready to pull the trigger and order the frames and keep going?
Are those plastic?
They're wood,
Yeah, I think they look great.
yeah. And they'll have, each print will be matted. It just depending on the size. And I'm sure they have some kind of standardized paper, so they'll all be generally about the same. And like I say, this is an experimental year. We'll have it year one, and I think it's going to be a big hit. We will have to do a plaque, so we'll have to start thinking about what language we might want to have on the plaque, just to show that the art is from students at Ridgeline High School. We can come up with some simple language and get a permanent type of plaque for the wall. And then the other piece of it is that we would issue the students some type of certificate from the city showing our appreciation for us exhibiting their art for a year, and then they can have their art back. All right, so is everyone, I don't think we need a motion, do we? To purchase or
I think
anything?
to make a
Okay,
purchase, I think
okay.
it's wise.
All right, so as I mentioned, it's 4-packs of these wooden frames. And if we're gonna move ahead with the project, do we have a motion to approve, to purchase the frames?
I move that we move forward purchasing the packs of wood frames.
Okay,
I second.
it's been moved and seconded to move forward. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Please show the motion is passed. Moving on to the next item, the Pavilion Historical Outlook. Laura, do you have any updates for us?
No updates. The only, I guess, item for discussion is the location. So we brought this up last month, of the flower bed, the landscaping bed, next to the pavilion where the existing plaque is. That was, after looking at it with the Historical Society, that was the preferred location for now, just with the unknown of what future park layouts might happen in the coming years. I don't know if we need a motion or anything to approve that location, but that would be the only item. We are, the Historical Society is still working on the top plate. I'm still waiting on pricing for the mounting base for that top plate, but should have everything back by next month. But at this point, there's nothing that I see preventing us from having it done this year.
Okay, that's good news. Commissioners, any discussion on the location? Any questions? Does everyone understand the location Laura's referencing?
I have a comment. Laura, could we make sure they have a donation form completed?
Yes.
I
Yep.
can email one to you if you'd like, and you can get it to them, or,
Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great.
okay.
The only other item that I wanted to maybe throw out for consideration, and this might come more into play with discussion on future projects. So when I met with Trevor, we talked about removing some of the landscaping that's a little overgrown in that area. And by doing so, you have a better visibility of, I think, what is really a utility booth, but represents what the ticketing booth looked like in the original pavilion. It's a little run down, so I thought maybe a fresh coat of paint on that in the pavilion might be something that we as a commission want to consider, either as part of our beautification funds or something for next year. But as we talk about the potential of wrapping the mural, another idea that we could look at is there's kind of inset panels onto that ticketing booth that you could make an extension of the mural in having, some historical figures in those inlay panels, because right now there's just, it's just a painted piece of plywood. So I should have gone and taken some pictures to share, but just something that we might want to consider as a future project.
We
moving
want
forward.
to look at rebuilding that. It's actually quite rotten. There's
Yes.
rot in there, so I wouldn't just slap a coat of paint on it. I would recommend we look into fixing it up the right way. Which-
Is that something that's already budgeted?
Not right now, no. We could do that for next year, though.
Okay.
Jen, when you're saying we could do that for next year, would that be a Parks and Arts Commission project or?
Well, I could foresee the city taking care of the renovation, if you will, of it to keep, it needs to be taken care of. It's been in kind of poor condition for a while. It doesn't look like it to the naked eye, other than paint, but we would take care of it as a facility project, and then any decorative addition like artwork would be the Parks and Arts Commission.
So that's something when we got to our strategic plan that we could look
Yeah.
at in theoretically in 2025, because you
Yeah.
would get it done and we would have time to do something.
Correct.
Okay. So maybe Laura, that's something for later in the agenda.
Yeah, that's why I was just saying that might be a future project, but just something to consider. Once that landscaping's down, you really have a much better visibility of that and the light poles that kind of line the walkway up to the pavilion.
Are you envisioning all the landscaping in that bed being taken out and kind of starting over?
I'm gonna talk to Trevor. I know he had some ideas. I know the trees for sure is what it sounded like, but I think you still, you probably want some landscaping, but it might be considered part of that project.
I know he and I have talked about, there are 3 large trees in there that are probably about 7 to 9 feet tall. Tho-
Yeah,
When those trees come out, it will open that whole section up. Beyond that, there's just some small, low-growing shrub material, very little in there. So I think all we will need to do is remove those 3 larger trees. And Trevor and I have talked about that in the past. They're kind of a nuisance to have in there anyway. And then whatever existing plant material, we can either remove it to fit the plaque in there, or we can tear it up. We can do whatever. I think we're fairly flexible.
okay. And then the only other thing in that, if we move forward with that location, is there is the city dedication plaque. I believe, I don't know what the official title is of it, but when I was looking at it, it really doesn't have a lot of significance to the pavilion per se. So that might be something that we want to look at, maybe relocating to Town Square. Or if we want to keep it in Pavilion Park, we certainly can. We just have to identify a location for it, but it's not really pertaining to the park itself. So Town Square might be a more appropriate location long-term.
And I think the reason that Lud Kramer Memorial Plaque went in there was simply because the Lud Kramer Symphony Memorial Concert is in that same location. I think really that's the
Yeah.
only tie.
Well, thank you for all the research you've been doing on that. It's greatly appreciated. Jen, would we need a motion to approve the location? Okay, so is there any, we don't need a motion, but does anybody have any more discussion on the location, or we're good with the Historical Society and Laura's recommendation? Okay, I guess that's the green light. We'll keep moving with that location in mind, and excited about that, getting that project done this year. Thanks, Laura. So next on the agenda is the basketball court skate park art dedication ceremony, which is scheduled for Saturday, June 8 at 11 a.m. I just found out that the mayor will be able to attend. Laura's arranged for both artists to come and hopefully someone from Hoop Fest, although it's really close to their big event. So they may or may not get there, but they're gonna try.
We did get word from the fire department that they'd like to play a 3-on-3 game.
Oh,
And so I'm hoping that the police department will also step up and challenge them. So,
are you having that conversation? or-
yes,
Okay, so that's still a possibility
Yeah.
where we would have the dedication right at 11 and then people can watch them.
yeah, we might possibly have a free throw contest too, just for fun for kids.
Yeah, well, it was in the splash, which came in my mail today, so hopefully we'll get a turnout. I think the weather's supposed to be fantastic, and so when I gave my report to council a few weeks ago, I told them to bring their skateboards and their basketballs, so hopefully we'll get some council members that will be there. So hope to see all you guys there. Any questions about the dedication? All right. Moving on to the next item, the Kramer Liberty Lake Together call to artist for our little triangle piece of property. Laura, any updates on that?
No updates. I have received 0 proposals and 0 questions. So I don't know if we want to try resharing it. And then obviously if anyone on the commission knows of local artists that might be interested, just trying to keep the word out and keep it fresh. But yeah, I haven't really received any communication on that from anybody. And we sent it to, I sent it to over 80 artists. So it's a little disheartening at this point that we haven't heard anything.
Hmm. Okay, is that something the city could reshare? Okay,
I'll make a note to ask to have it reshared on Facebook, and it is on our, should be on our website, so.
okay. All right, and then commissioners, if you see it come back out on the city site, if we go ahead and share it on our personal outlets, if you would like, or we know people, maybe we'll send it to the art teachers at Ridgeline, and they might know people and try to get the word out. All right, well, keep us posted, and thanks, Laura. Appreciate your efforts on that as well. So as far as our commissioner positions, we did have Tom Chamberlain resign, and his position became open and was advertised. Katie had applied for that because we had 2 adjunct positions, Katie and Joni. And so Katie was approved at the last city council meeting after being interviewed by the mayor. And so she's now in the voting position. We have the other adjunct position is now open. So if you know anybody that has an interest, they're taking applications now for that. Additionally, Allison, I guess you're going to be cycling off the student position, and I wondered, we probably won't be able to fill it till the school year starts in September. Would you be staying with us for the summer?
I will not be because I'm actually moving like around the beginning of the summer. So I have to talk to my teacher about another student taking my position, but I know she's had some amazing artists and students who will probably love to do this with you guys.
Well, will this be your last meeting, or will you have another few meetings before you move?
This will be my last meeting, actually.
Well, Allison, you have been a joy to work with. I mean, every project that you've taken on, your follow through has been exemplary and really pivotal in getting us the student art at the Trailhead building. And we can't thank you enough for your participation. And we hope that you do wonderful things in the future. We know you will, and come back and visit us.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've enjoyed this a lot. I'm so glad that the students at Ridgeline get to show their art at Liberty Lake. So thank you.
Yeah, well, if you can
Thank
spread,
you, Allison.
if you can spread the word that the position will be opening up, that would be great. We'd really appreciate your assistance for one last time.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I did send Heather Chronister at the school, the art teacher, I sent her the link to the application page where if students are interested, they can apply.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you again, Allison. All
Yeah,
right,
thank you.
yeah. Moving on to our next agenda item, which is the bicycle community survey results. And Katie, you have a little
Okay.
report for us?
Yes, if you could turn to the page that Jen printed out on the bike-friendly community audit. So it was a really fun experience. We had quite a few community members biking to 4 different areas in Liberty Lake on the south and north end parks. And you'll see we met at Town Center. So that's kind of where we went. And then there's the problem areas. I pointed out a few different things. I think it's always good to look at safety on a yearly basis, even though I think Liberty Lake is a very safe community to bike in. it's good to know that, you know, we're looking out for bikers and pedestrians and have, you know, different areas that we're always working on. So I just have mentioned a few different things that people have mentioned. More share the road signs and basically the routes in and out of Town Center Park. There's no really routes for bikes or pedestrian walkways in and out of that park. And I know it's still being developed, right? So that's just something to keep in mind for the future when there's planning
Right.
on developing that park.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
master plan work is gonna start in the fall, if memory serves me. Is that correct, Mark? The master plan for Town Square?
Potentially, we're kind of rethinking the sequencing of some of those things to better coincide with the comp plan work that's going on. And there may be an opportunity to combine some of those efforts so as to get some economies of scale, but it's definitely something that we still intend to move forward on soon.
Okay.
Is that when there's going to be a public works director hired too, that will be working with that, or?
The Public Works Director arrival has less to do with the master planning on the parks side than it does with some of the other master planning efforts like facilities and pavement and sidewalks. But his input in a process like that would certainly be valuable, but it's not dependent on his arrival.
I was just wondering if that person would coordinate like bike lanes and
Oh, for,
pathways and things like that.
oh, for roads.
Off the
and stuff.
transportation, yeah. So anyway, just looking down here and there's basically, we looked at who all was out biking and walking, and then possible solutions, I think, is what we would really want to focus on. And I think it'd be great if we could create a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee. That way we could give input as things are developing in Liberty Lake. So I'm asking to see if you guys think that'd be a good idea.
No, I think that's a great idea. Are you thinking, a commissioner like yourself led citizen committee?
And then different citizens would be involved in it.
No, I think that's
That'd
a
be
great
great.
idea.
Okay, because then we could get more people involved
Mhm.
and more ideas and more participation, you know, in the input. The other thing, which would be kind of fun, we talked about developing a fun map of Liberty Lake. And I brought an example of one that the city of Spokane Valley has done. And I'll just kind of pass it around. I laminated this one. And I can pass another one around to this side, but it kind of shows different bike pathways throughout the city of Spokane Valley, and we could do one kind of like that for Liberty Lake. To the different, you know, recreational areas and things that are physically always gonna be there, so. Just look at it for a fun reference,
Mhm.
you know, something we might do in the future. Then, you know, just being aware of being able to give input to the city on if we see a hazard or a specific area that can be repaired quickly. So, you know, people don't get hurt biking. Just have a way to report that quickly to the city. So that's kind of the big overview of, you know, what we kind of looked at. And I just think if we had an advisory committee, we could pinpoint things more specifically. I know there were a lot of comments about the overpass from I-90, you know, where the pedestrian bridge is. It's always kind of challenging for bikers to get from there to the busy streets where you go off of the bridge. So it's still a little bit challenging getting across those crosswalks and things to the busy streets. So it'd be good to just like look into it and see what we could do to make bikers feel more safe crossing at those really busy intersections. There's
I'm
different,
still surprised people try and cross over Harvard. I see bikers trying to cross over pretty close to the cars when they're going over.
Yeah. So, it does help to have the little bike share things painted on the roadways so bikers get more direction and where to go. Yeah, it's safe. So, anyway, I think we should carry on, and I'm gonna go ahead then this week probably and fill out the little update on our community status. And that's why I kind of wanted to know if you guys approved having a bike safety advisory committee, then I can put that we're working on that. Could be one of our points, and so I will have that updated for our next meeting.
Great. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about having a committee or anything? Questions for Katie about her survey? I personally love this map.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, Spokane Valley's a little bigger. We could almost do a combo map and put on we'd have the parks and the bike trails and maybe walking paths or
Yeah.
something. I mean, we're doing the whimsical one on the wall at Trailhead, but maybe something more boots on the ground that we could have for citizens, or at least certainly have online that people could print out or something.
Yeah, I
So I
think-
love that idea.
I think that's online too.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you for doing that.
Thanks,
and,
Katie.
well, maybe I
in
would
progress.
encourage you to develop out the citizen committee idea a little bit more and what that might look like, so that we'd have a way of presenting it to citizens for possible involvement.
Okay.
Maybe some other municipality already has something written that we can make our own.
Version of it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look into that.
All right. Great. Wonderful job. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else for unfinished new business? If not, we'll move to our action items. Mikkel? He's got two jobs today. He's taking the minutes and he's giving a report.
So after last time's discussion, I did put together two different sets of fees just because everyone wanted some different options. So if you look at the fee schedule page, there's an option A and an option B for both park shelter reservations and then also for field use. And it doesn't have to be like park shelter and field use, both A, one could be A and then the other one could be B. And then I also, in regards with that, I put together some guidelines just for park shelter reservation process and field reservation process. And we were just curious as staff if that's something you all wanted to weigh in on, the guideline portion or just the fees.
So I'll elaborate a little bit. The fee schedule is actually a document which is now turned into 2 pages. It's a 2-page document that will be voted on by the Parks and Arts Commission and recommended to the city council for them to approve. So it goes through Parks and Arts Commission first. It's reviewed, the fee structure is reviewed, changed, updated, whatever the case may be. The Parks and Arts Commission will approve the draft. The draft will then get entered into the actual budget for council approval. The guidelines portion that Mikkel is referring to is simply day-to-day procedure and operations. We thought that while normally commissions don't weigh in on this level of detail, I wanted to make sure, and Mikkel wanted to make sure there wasn't a desire for the commission to weigh in on these sorts of details. If they choose to, then great, we can bring this back at another meeting for further discussion. This is not something that goes into the budget for council approval. This is just operating daily guidelines for reservations and programming. Are there any questions on that? Is that clear? Clear as mud? Okay.
I personally trust you guys' expertise on what works best for you as long regarding the guidelines.
Is the online registration thing going to happen?
We are looking at software for next year. There is a software program that ties into our existing website where everything can be done online. We don't have that capability at this time, but because it's a substantial amount to bring software on, we are planning on adding that into our budget for 2025 implementation. It will streamline everything so much better. So, yes,
FOPP won't get any questions
yes,
anymore,
hopefully.
even though we don't
Yes,
post the site, we still get
you
questions,
get a question, yes,
phone calls.
yep.
So the fee schedule A and B, I can't remember how much different that is from prior years.
So currently we do it at a hourly rate.
Oh,
And
that's
so it
right.
would change it up because we had discussed doing a block schedule.
Right.
So I put in either for park reservations, like a 4-hour block or a 3-hour block. So if we add it together, it's pretty similar in cost. It just forces the 4-hour block. Because the reservation fee, like what it costs to do a reservation is roughly the same for an hour versus 4 hours, just staff time that goes into it.
Right.
And then I did do some calculations for the past 3 years. Our average reservation time is 3.5 hours.
Oh, perfect. So that's why you went with the 4-hour block and,
Mhm.
um,
And it does avoid a little bit. You can kind of play the system right now, depending on when you do your reservation. So if you do it at certain times, no one's going to be able to come in after you or want to come in after you. So this kind of also avoids that as well. It
Yeah.
gives you designated blocks.
so if you wanted to have a morning birthday party, then there might be an evening potluck
Mm.
slot available. That makes sense.
And I think to be clear, Mikhail, correct me if I'm wrong, where it says 2023 fees, the 2023 fees and the 2024 fees are the same. So that would be what our fee structure is
Yeah,
right now,
It
With-
should say 2025.
with the exception of the Town Square Park, which the commission did vote to approve adding that in. So that's new and different this year. You already approved that.
Right.
So we left that in there, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Well, I love the idea of the block. Mikhail, are you leaning towards option A or B? And if so, why?
Either one I think would be fine. Most places do a minimum of 3 hours. And then a lot of other places do 4. 4 just opens it up because there are some larger reservations. Then if you just do the 3 hours and someone wants it for that 4, then they have to do a whole nother 4 hours. 4 gives a little bit more wiggle room. Plus with the 4 hours, there is I put an hour break in between each reservation. So if there is any overlap, it does give time for people, hopefully to avoid any issues with multiple people using the same facility in one day.
So we'll be asked to vote on this at our next meeting. Is there any questions you have or any direction about what you might like to see different before our vote?
So if I'm understanding, Miguel, it's either A or B, or are we offering A and B to the?
Either A or B.
Or,
My preference is B.
or the first column. You can leave it as is too. So there's 3 options.
Are both A and B 4-hour blocks?
A is 4, B is 3.
Yes, I like the 4-hour block.
Excuse me, I meant A, not B. Yeah, the 4-hour block.
Because you said the average time was 3.5.
3.5. Smallest reservation I saw was 45 minutes. Longest one was 8 hours.
Oh, my.
Are you thinking of not allowing water balloons in the park? I saw that.
So that was just a question I had. So in other parks, some don't allow it, or especially in the splash pad area. So it was just,
Because of the lawnmowers maybe running over the.
They're messy and currently if people do ask if they're allowed when they have a reservation, we say only if they're biodegradable.
They have a new kind that's reusable.
Yeah, there are reusable kinds, there are compostable.
I think those would be
Kinds.
good.
Yeah,
'Cause
there
they
are
keep 'em.
there are balloon technologies these days, so that you don't have to have the old rubber ones that stay there for a million years.
and then if you look, it's different too with the field use. We had discussed blocks as well for the field use potentially. And so that once again was whatever the commission want, leave it the same, do a 3-hour block, 4-hour block for the baseball fields and grass space fields.
Do you have an average time for those?
Those
use?
ones, it's very hard to calculate because there's groups that will reserve the field all day. But then not necessarily use them all day. And so that one's a lot harder to calculate. I would say the grass fields on average are about 2 hours. And then the baseball fields, when we're all said and done, they are closer to 3 hours.
Be nice to have those standardized. I mean, would you think 3-hour blocks on those fields, or would you want to do 4 in case it's like
I would say
15 innings long or something?
yeah, and that's the thing with baseball, you don't know, and they could keep going. And so I think safety wise, 4 is a better option.
Are you proposing to have a difference between game and practice when you're reserving the fields?
I would just do one fee because it doesn't cost much difference for us on our end for a practice and a game. The practice is a little bit less because there's typically less people at the park, but not substantial.
I was just thinking in terms of availability because I have baseball players right now and I know that our practices are generally an hour and a half, but to your point, the games, because there's, at least in the league we're playing in, there's an inning and then there's also a time cutoff. So then, yes, you are there longer, but in general, if you're doing a 4-hour block, and I don't know, you could potentially have 2 different practice times in terms of making sure it's available to more community members to be able to utilize.
And either way, these are the kind of ones I've seen some other people do other than just the hour block. So I think there's a lot of different ways they can go about it, and what works best for the communities, I think what we're trying to figure out.
Well, it seems, go ahead, Bob.
I don't think I'm.
Push and hold.
Push and hold.
Oh,
There you go. You're on now.
okay, is this?
Whoops, now you're off.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. The only issue I have is the Liberty Lake Kiwanis runs a concession stand at a lot of the events. So all of this that we're talking about, will that have an impact on them at the club?
No.
Okay. I'd like that.
I had a question about the kiosks. Are those digital kiosks or are those
They're manual.
are they at every park, or is there one central kiosk where they go to look for this?
There's a kiosk at each park shelter. And then the overall park kiosk, but ones regarding reservations, there's one at each park shelter. I don't believe we have kiosks at all the sports fields, though.
Well, I definitely like the idea. I mean, to me, the shelters are easy at 4 hours a block, but the fields and the baseball, that's a little more complex. Laura, you brought up some good points. What do you think would be a reasonable way of setting the fees?
It's not an easy question, right? That's the only reason I brought it up is I know we've never had a 4-hour practice and I think you don't want to, for practicing at least, limit the number of teams that can get in there because they are nice fields and there is, I know, a desire to be able to utilize them in practice there. So, but also being cognizant of creating additional procedural type work for the city staff. At the end of the day, I feel like we're serving the community and we need to be looking at, what benefits the community and the city in terms of how we're moving forward and setting up the, not only the ball fields, but the shelters and park and all these reservations for community events that really enhance the city and make it a desirable place to visit and spend time in.
Is that something that, Mikhail, that you could research maybe a little bit more and maybe bring back some type of a draft for the fields and the baseball thing, maybe looking at practice versus games, see if it would be too cumbersome, because I understand what Laura's saying, of practices are never necessarily as long as the game might be.
Yeah, no, I could do that.
Anything else you'd like to see him bring back as in the draft that we're gonna probably need to vote on next time? Okay, well, thank you for your research and all that. It's been helpful.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up on our agenda is the budget and strategic plan. Part of our, I guess, workshop agenda item, and we can all kind of turn to the page, which was after his report somewhere. Towards the back, here it is. The Public Art 2023 through 2026 page. So our goal is to start working on this as a draft where 2023 would drop off and we would add 2027. So we're still working on obviously finishing up some of our 2024 projects and hopefully we'll be able to do so. Really hope we get some artists to bid on our Kramer Parkway project. We have some draft items already in our 2025. The most important thing we need to do is to set a detailed list for what we want to do in 2025 and set a realistic budget numbers to go with that. Then in 2026 and 2027, we're going to need to, we have some categories that we've worked on and a few of them are fleshed out. And then we can develop those more with a broad stroke, but we really are going to need to drill down into 2025. So in 2025 now we have our Liberty Lake Together art. We have the Pavilion Park update and the playground is still scheduled for next year.
Yes.
Okay. And I know there was some rock or boulder art that was talked about. And then we have our beautification, our programming. We had already mentioned the Smarty boards, at least trying to do one a year in the other parks. So if we start with that as our guideline, understanding we can add a project or we could subtract a project, does you want to brainstorm a little bit about what you might want to see? Laura, I know I think we're part of the boulder art. Maybe we start with that in Pavilion Park. That's been on there a while. I'm not sure what the original concept was.
It's been on there a while, and I think a lot of it's been the uncertainty of what that area is going to look like moving forward. And it was kind of inspired by a trip my family made to Denver, and they had it outside of the Children's Museum. So I had shared some pictures several years ago that kind of spurred this project, and we've just kind of been sitting on it, I think, until we knew what Pavilion Park was going to look like.
So I don't know where the 20,000 came from, if there was any research behind that.
There was some preliminary research, but again, it was probably 5 years ago. So I would definitely recommend, and I can reach out to, I think I still have the name of the person we originally contacted, just to see if he would be able to give us an estimate again, or at least confirm the number we have in there is sufficient.
Right, because once we, like you said, know more about the playground update, then we can see there's areas obviously around the current footprint of the playground where stuff could be added or intertwined, or we won't know until that happens. But if you wouldn't mind doing a little research of that and maybe sending Jen, or I don't know if you still have those pictures, so we could look at that and maybe try to firm up that item if it's the commission's pleasure for our next meeting.
Yeah, I still have the pictures. I'm happy to send those out to get those to Jen, and then she can share them with the rest of the commissioners. And I'm also happy to follow up on pricing.
Okay, so that's, I'm sorry. Go
Oh, I
ahead.
was gonna say, Laura, CC me on those requests and I'll step in and help out as much as I can and even take lead if you need me to on that. Because I know
Thank you. Dave.
your
Appreciate
plate's
it.
pretty full.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
So also already on the existing 2025 list, we have the Trailhead Art Wall, and that, I believe that would just be a cross out because we're completing that this year. And then we have the Smarty Board, so that would be if the commission wants to move ahead and do another one or even two of them and just whip them out. And that's kind of what we have. So what are your ideas? What do you want to see happen in 2025? The sky's the limit. Well, as long as somebody gives us money for it.
I would like to see us put both Smarty boards in next year. We could stagger them, or if it's easier to do both at one time, but one at Pavilion and one at Rocky Hill,
Mhm.
rather than wait another year.
And if we did that, would that end up costing 2,800 and it might cost a little more next year? So would we maybe just want to put
Maybe we
7,000?
can find out if they have a quantity discount if you order two,
Yeah.
maybe you get, 10% or 5% off.
We could
Would
put
you
a,
like me to check on that?
yeah, and we always want to put a placeholder a little bit higher because it's easier not to
Okay.
spend money than ask for more. So maybe depending on your research, we'd put like
Okay.
7,000 or something like that in there.
A rule of thumb is a 10 or 15% contingency on something like
10
that,
to
just to
15%.
account for supplies and unexpected expenses.
I'll find
Okay.
out.
All right, you'll find out for the two. Is everybody good if to do more of those? Are you happy with that concept?
Well, I think, of course, the more you have, the more people come across them.
Mhm.
And I just think when people see those, they're gonna say, oh, I didn't know I could go there. And so it gets people out. May even add ability for people who are looking for exercising. Someplace they could go and walk where it's more interesting than just walking down the road. So my general feeling is more than two, but it just depends on where you would put them.
Are you talking about the books?
Yeah,
Yeah, we were talking about the Smarty boards, which
no,
is the.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the Smarty board.
the Smarty board. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think definitely, if David, you want to.
Yep.
Do a little bit of that research and we can keep that as a placeholder. I mean, bringing up the books, the storybook walk. We don't have one of those in Pavilion Park.
How about a storybook to go along with the location of the new library? Perhaps just right outside the
Oh.
library. That might be, could be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Mark, do you have any idea about the library master plan?
So we're in the process now of negotiating with a project management consulting firm. And once that contract is in place, assuming it gets approved, we would be mapping out a project plan that would include a timeline for the community engagement piece of that. So that's still a bit down the road, but it's within sight. So if you had something like that you wanted to do, I might suggest programming that in 25. I'm sorry, in 26 versus 25.
So we could look at that in our 2026, and then I don't know if you have an interest in 2025 and you want to keep going with that project and do something in Pavilion Park so that we have one in all of our city parks, or
It's quite the undertaking and it has to be, coordinated we used Spokane Valley Tech last time, so they're gonna have to be on board. So why don't I reach out to Mark to see who his replacement would be? And then I'll circle back via email and then we can decide if we want to put that in 25 or 26, or if we want to even tackle another one.
okay.
I think looking at other locations as well, I know we had talked about the trail along Trailhead course. My concern with Pavilion would just be that those areas are pretty busy already with other items.
Right.
And then Jen, I wanted to circle back on the Pavilion Park equipment upgrade. I know that that's not currently in the budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of anything other than an in-kind replacement. Is that something that the commission needs to be looking at, considering proposing a budget line item for, or would that be driven by your department?
So it's in the CFP already for with a budget of 120,000 for 2025.
That's just for an in-kind though, but if you're looking
Yes.
at a, like you had said, this is a once in a 20 to 30 year type project, right?
If
That-
if it's gonna be anything more than like in kind, that will need to be a discussion with the commission and a recommendation to council.
Okay.
Otherwise,
something-
budgeted for like in kind replacement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that's a desire from your department that the commission gets involved in, or?
For the like in kind replacement?
No, I know, no, in terms of an expansion.
Our department,
What would that look like? Would it be proposing that a plan be developed? Is it proposing, because I know you're planning next year to replace the equipment, but if you were to be doing any type of redesign, that would potentially impact what your selections would look like.
You're talking about possibly increasing the footprint and doing something considerably different than what's there now?
Well, that was just a conversation that was had last month of that now would be the time that you would want to look at that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, if this is something that's not even being considered. I just wanted to.
yes,
to
so
keep
that
it
needs
in the
to,
forefront.
yes, that needs to be a discussion with the commission. Before budget season, if there is a desire to expand, renovate. Whatever to that playground that's beyond like in kind replacement, which is currently budgeted. And I think we're gonna actually have to expand that budget because the initial vendor that I spoke with, they can barely get like in kind essentially replacement for the 120,000. It's pushing more like 140. So if there's something beyond what is a like in kind replacement, and even at that, the commission will be involved in that planning. But if there's something above and beyond that, that has not been budgeted in the city's budget and would need to be discussed by the commission, and a recommendation would need to be brought forward to the council. Does that answer your question?
If I could, Laura, if I
It
can-
answers my question. I guess the kind of the baseline question I still have is that a desire that your department?
That we haven't discussed that. We don't, I mean, our department doesn't discuss renovating, making it bigger. That's an idea of the citizens. That's an idea of the commission. We're just here to do whatever the commission's recommendation and desire is, as long as council approves it. So no, that hasn't necessarily been discussed as a preference from our department. We don't necessarily get involved in those types of decisions. We're more the logistics of what is going to be, not the wish list of what should be or might be. That's kind of where the commission plays the role, not the department.
Mark, you were going to weigh in?
Yeah, Laura, if I can interject, as part of the comprehensive planning process, there's going to be a revision of the parks master plan. And so I would think that would be a fantastic opportunity to have a global conversation about future footprints of not only Pavilion, but any other park that you wanted to include in that. And so that may be a conversation that you want to queue up for the time when Lisa Key and her department comes to you with those questions and conversations about the parks master plan overall.
So I'm hearing what you're saying, Mark, but I'm wondering if there gonna overlap the incorrect way, like.
Yes,
Like,
Yes.
like the footprint replacement might already be ordered before.
yes, but just because it's in the 2025, so the beauty of the CIP and our asset management software is that as old as that playground equipment is, it's not gonna hurt anything to wait another year
Oh.
if that were to be the case. Because the comprehensive plan may come a little bit later than, let's say it comes mid to late 2025, early 26. And we're ready, let's say we're ready in 25 of spring to replace that playground, but there's ongoing discussion of a potential renovation. What I will do is budget in the short term this year, what I know for a like in kind replacement at a minimum, we'll budget that. If there's discussion now for a renovation and we can come up with a dollar figure to put in the budget this year for next year, great. If not, then we can have that discussion through the discussions with the comprehensive plan and the overall master plans of a bigger picture, a bigger renovation happening. And we could push it out to 26. Regardless, something will go in the budget for next year for pavilion. But it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen until 26, if there is a desire to take a different approach.
And that's strictly the playground equipment. That has nothing to do with the splash pad.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question. Does our commission have any input on like buddy benches that are at parks, those kind of things, or maybe more creative bike racks that are artistic, that kind of thing?
That would typically, depending on dollar amount, that would typically fall into the beautification fund, or if it was a larger project, you could budget for something like that specifically.
Right.
That might be something.
Yeah, we don't have
Kind of
anything, we don't
interesting.
have any buddy benches in any of our parks. That's a great suggestion. And
Some of
it-
the art styled bike stands that you see like in Coeur d'Alene, Bozeman, Missoula, some of those are really, really neat.
There is one at Town Square that was gifted by the Rotary when that park was built. And that's the only one we have that I'm aware of. That's decorative.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to make functional art. There's no question about it. I've
I
seen
think
some
one
really cool ones.
A pavilion park would be something we could look at. Maybe put that on for 2025.
Under the beautification.
Yeah.
Do you want me to look into some options on
please.
that? And buddy benches are really great to have in communities. They have them a lot at schools. Just because a lot of people are, if they're walking, they want to sit down and rest. It's a good place to meet people. Other people are walking, they sit down next to you, you have a conversation, you know, so it's a really community friendly situation.
And those could be great Eagle Scout projects and Scout troop projects.
I know there's no splash pad at Rocky Hill. Is that in some kind of a plan somewhere?
That was on the CFP for a very long time. Let me look on the unfunded projects list. That is on the unfunded projects list. It's UF7. You all have that in your packet as part of this discussion. Yes, it has been on the CFP for many years and nothing has ever come of it.
Which number is that?
Keep going. Keep going. Oh,
Here we go.
Go back.
It's this sheet.
The unfunded.
Oh,
list.
yeah.
Yeah, page 17 is kind of interesting if you turn to that page. Because there's the message board and senior center, dog park, fallen heroes, more community gardens, parking lot, splash pad. Protected bike lanes I see on there. Restrooms, golf. We have one disc golf course, and that's at Pavilion Park. Does it get used very much?
It does.
It does.
It has a very dedicated following.
Page 17. Okay.
Is the Appleway Trail extension, is that part of the unfunded projects, or is that something that's gonna happen?
Where do you
It's
see that?
under pedestrian projects on the next page.
Oh, the next page.
It's TP 23. Mark, do you know if that is happening? The
Yeah, so-
Appleway Trail extension?
So that's part of the, yeah, that's part of the budgeted, if it's got a project number,
It says TP 23
yeah. So that's
on a paper.
currently in the CFP, so let me get there.
It's labeled page 8, but it's not in any kind of order.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the
It's
actual,
about 3 from the end.
yeah, I'm seeing the pedestrian project list, but I'm not seeing the corresponding table.
Yeah, I don't think I printed that one.
Okay.
For
So
transportation.
So I don't know what year that is, the funding is scheduled for that, but this would be something according to this nomenclature that would be part of the actual plan, meaning it's planned and funded.
So that's city budgeted, and we wouldn't have to worry about those kind of projects. because-
Correct.
Okay.
Would that go from T Shirley all the way to Liberty Lake? Or it says to the Kramer Bridge?
The
Well-
Shirley's is
In
in
the valley.
Spokane Valley.
Yeah.
It cuts the city boundaries at Hodges.
So I was just wondering, is it gonna connect though, where it ends there?
We would only, so we could partner with the city of Spokane Valley to contemplate a connection at some point in the future. And in fact, we're working with them on a corridor study that would potentially include things like that. But in our case, in our capital facilities plan, we would only project that to city limit potentially. And I assume
Yeah.
that's where this project is taking it.
The valleys ends right at the city line.
Okay, so then
It's
that
already-
this
we
project
would
would
just
connect the
connect
two.
to it,
Okay.
yeah.
That
got
would
it.
be very awesome. That would really help the Viking
Mhm,
pathway.
mhm. So we always have our Liberty Lake Together art as a category, which is what we're doing, trying to get the sculpture for the Kramer Parkway. So we would have an opportunity to earmark some location for that type of thing. The bike rack could go under beautification.
I noticed in 26, there's a goat statue for 10,000. And I was thinking maybe propose moving it up to 25 since the trailhead art wall you mentioned is going to be lined out. Perhaps moved to,
Yeah, because we did that this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a possibility about moving something like that up.
where would the goat statue be
That's a darn good question.
located?
The Appleway Trail extension is slated for 2028.
2000.
A little background on the goat statue is that was one of the first projects we tried to undertake, and we only had 2 submissions, and that just kind of got pushed out to the outer years, I guess, if you will. And so that's been in there as a placeholder. I would caution against trying to do 2 statues in one year.
Mhm.
Just given that we're having trouble getting proposals for the one right now. So in that situation, I would just recommend that we either do the goat or the Liberty Lake together and make a decision. And the idea was that they would be placed somewhere in one of the locations near where the goats reside in the summers.
Oh, yeah.
But
Laura,
that's all subject to discussion. That was just the original thought when that got put on the strategic plan.
Laura, or maybe David, was the Liberty Lake Together art always planned to be a sculpture?
Not necessarily. No, it was just meant to kind of have a common theme, but and David, step in if I'm misrepresenting, but we did kind of model it off of the statues like the Spokane Hearts, the Love Campaign in Virginia, the Snoopy Dogs in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And those examples are all statues, but I don't know that we had ever stipulated it had to be.
And when I thought of goats, I thought about, in towns, they pick something like a cow or a buffalo or a pig, and they're like blank fiberglass things, and then people somehow get one and paint it, and then they're exhibited around the community for a certain amount of time, and then I don't know, they get purchased or something. That would be kind of cool with goats, but you need a lot of art people for that.
Jen, you brought up a piece of art one time in an email that was interactive with other pieces of art across the country. It seemed to drop off the server at least on my
Was it the
phone.
portal?
Yes.
Yes, Mark's suggestion. It's, from what I read, it sounds like they select the city, so it's maybe an application
Okay.
process, but yeah, it's really cool.
I thought it was if.
And it seems like larger cities,
Yeah.
but again, I don't know the details of that, but that was pretty cool. So it's this big round, like huge round sort of sculpture that's in the downtown central portion of a city. And people who walk by, it's like a screen. And people who walk by, everything's real time, interactive. The people that are in the city can look at the screen, and there's another one in a far off land city. And they can see who's walking by in the same moment of time.
That's
And you can interact and wave and.
Would you mind sending
Yeah.
that out again
Yes,
if the commission doesn't recall it? I thought it was pretty amazing.
I think there's one in New York City and the other side is in Dublin.
yes, I think you're right.
Really?
I think they've been having some trouble. They had to shut it down because the people in Dublin, when it turned evening, they were getting a little, they were sharing more than they should, I guess. So,
Different time
Leave
zone.
it to those Irish.
Hmm. Well, this is great brainstorming. What are your other ideas? I mean, the bike rack seems like a good one because we're working on
Yes.
the bike safety thing. So that seems really good for beautification. And our Liberty Lake Together art, we probably would need to drill down the location and probably have a larger budget, because I don't think you can do much in the way of a sculpture or some kind of large art piece for 12,500 as we're seeing. The boulders is kind of contingent on the whole Pavilion Park playground thing. Unless we would want to do something at another park and then write that in again for 2026 or something, or I'm not sure what we should do about that. The timing is problematic. I love the idea of boulder art, though. It's
It's a good fit for Rocky Hill Park.
Well, that's true. It's rocky.
Mhm.
Yeah, again, Laura, I'll help out with that. Like I said, I can even take lead on it.
I'll make sure I CC you when I reach out to the artist that we talked to before.
When I was at Pavilion Park for the Memorial Day event, I was looking at the playground, and it is a little small, and there is room to expand that footprint a little bit.
A little bit,
But not a lot.
right. Did you mention utility box signs? Finish the sign.
Oh,
wraps?
yeah, finish the utility box signs. We'll have to move that. Because we have the two at the Kramer Parkway ones, because those will be released by the DOT next year.
Yes.
Okay, so we should put that in for 2025.
Yeah.
Does the commission have an interest in doing something other than the in-kind replacement of the playground at Pavilion Park?
Well, does anybody have any ideas about new equipment? You know, that has been designed,
Mhm.
you know, recently that maybe would give us an idea of what else might be something that's out there that we're not aware of?
Yes, so I actually have a concept from the first vendor. She drafted a very basic concept. It's not picked, it's not color coordinated, it's just a basic concept of what an inclusive, all-inclusive playground would look like for the two age brackets. So I'd be happy to do a quick presentation at the next meeting with that information. In the meantime, I'm meeting with a second playground vendor in 2 weeks on site to again discuss some ideas. So I would be happy to share all of that information at the next meeting for further discussion.
That would be great. And as part of that, could you, or your team take a look at what space is available?
Yes, yes.
And what kind of expansion
Yes.
we might be able to?
We did discuss that with the first vendor. There would be discussion if you have two separate playground structures, because right now there's only one. It's suitable for the older category of kids. We do not have anything at Pavilion that's suitable for the young toddler age bracket. Playground structures are broken into two age categories, the young ones and then the older kids. If we were to do two play structures, there is not room in the existing footprint where the structure is now for two structures. They have to have a certain amount of space in between per risk management. So that's one of the play structures would have to go in a different location. We had talks about potentially moving the Fallen Heroes circuit course, put one of the play structures in there, move the circuit course elsewhere in the park. That's an option. I don't know what kind of, if any, pushback we might get from the public about that. That's a fairly ceremonial.
Kids' favorite thing to
It's
play
the
on.
kids and they're not supposed to play on it.
Right.
We've had kids get injured on that because they play on them.
Yeah.
There was a reason that it was put there, that so moms and dads could work out or caregivers could work out while they're watching their kids play. So there's this huge discussion and conversation that needs to happen. There's been talk about adding swings or another play area to the south of the pavilion of the sidewalk near the second basketball court. That's always another option. We have to be careful because we do route vehicles through that area for events. So there are some options, but I'd be happy to kind of package that up and bring it for discussion at the next meeting.
Because it would, I mean, like you were saying, Bob, we don't know what an in-kind replacement looks like, and so that would give us an idea.
Some
And
pictures.
if
Sure.
we did an in-kind replacement for the older playground, which we have now, and then as a commission, we could propose a second nearby location for a younger group, and then maybe some benches, so people, whole families can come and do that. That might be worth considering while they climb over the boulders to get there, so.
You know, I mentioned this before, the new Rivers Edge Park downtown Spokane. If you haven't been there, if you want to see some modern, inclusive equipment, park equipment, it is the best that I've ever seen.
It's nice.
And so if you're downtown, if you're in Riverfront Park, you can walk directly to it from anywhere, and it's all, but it's right next to the podium, right below the podium and next to it. There's some really cool things. Now, of course, they have a very much larger playground area, but there's some really neat things there.
McEwen Park has some cool stuff. They have a cool little music
Yes, they
area
do.
there
They do.
that a lot of kids enjoy. Well, if you could do that presentation, I think that would help us. I definitely would be interested in adding a playground area for the younger kids there. So if a whole family goes, then everyone has something safe to do. That makes complete sense if we have the room and they can be co-located, which I think would be important.
I need to leave. So is there anything else we need to vote on? Your staff report left?
I have just a staff
I'll watch
report.
it online.
Yeah, I don't think we have any votes, but I was just saying, David's gonna have to leave, and just so everybody just needs to keep thinking because we've got a lot of great ideas and we can build out of that and start at overlapping into 2026 and getting a few things down there. But thank you, David, for offering to do some of that research, and that'll be helpful. And
Also want to mention that Craig Howard said that you gave the best Parks and Arts Commission presentation at the last commission meeting. So kudos to you for doing that.
well, I
If
had
you want
help
to
from
watch
Katie.
it, all these things are online if you want to go watch them. About a week later, maybe? So if you want to see it, you can skip through right to the beginning.
Well, I just always say we're the fun ones. So you listen to all the city reports and I get to go up there and talk about, getting council members to bring skateboards and basketball court.
But Craig always
that's
texts me during the meeting
That's-
about hour 2, sometime hour 3. And wanted to know the baseball scores and whatnot, because it's a little dry sometimes, I would imagine. So, I'm not mad at it.
He's a good guy. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, do you want to keep brainstorming here for a while, or do we want to go ahead and move on and then regroup with some more formulated ideas once we have a chance to digest what we've been talking about? Anything else from you, Laura, or anybody else? Allison on Zoom, or Noelle? Is Noelle here?
She's not on.
Oh, she's not on.
And what I can do is I've written everything down in an attempt to start formatting a draft of an updated project list. So for the next meeting, I can take my best stab at updating next year's as well as the outline years and present a draft strategic plan for the
Mhm.
commission to approve. And
Yeah.
then we can reevaluate anything.
It's always nice when we have it written.
Yeah,
down and
so
see
I'll go
your
through and update that list and present a newly updated draft for the commission to rediscuss, add to, change before we
Okay.
finalize in the August meeting.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on then to the next item, which is Jen's exciting staff report.
So a lot of it is repeat from last time and actually the time before, so I won't go through those items. The new item that I have is the playground. So I'm meeting with the second vendor. I was gonna let you know that. Meeting with them in a couple weeks. We'll have hopefully a concept from them. I'll be able to present those visual concepts at the next meeting so that you can kind of see what the options are. Then we're moving forward on the Orchard Park Storage Building, which is going to provide for Winterglow as a storage setup facility for their winter light items.
Where's that going?
We don't, well, we haven't set the exact footprint, but we think it's gonna go south of the tennis courts, west of the existing restroom structure.
Mm.
There's an open space of grass in there. That park is challenging because of all the topography
Mhm.
changes and then the power lines
Oh, yeah.
in there. So there, it's really limited on our options, but that's our initial thought. Yeah, those are all repeat. The one thing I wanted to mention is upcoming council report, June 18th. If anybody is able to provide that report to council, let me know. And we should probably do a group photo soon, once we can hopefully get everybody in-house in council chambers to get a group photo, or we'll just take a photo of what we have, who we have on site. And then if you don't have a badge, Katie and Johnny, you guys don't have badges, do you?
No.
John, do you have a badge?
Yes.
You do have a badge.
Mhm.
So I need to get, which requires a photo. David will take a photo and then we'll get you an ID badge. So I'll get caught up on those.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could have them for barefoot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then the open adjunct commission position and the open student commission. which-
And what about 4C?
4C comp plan. Oh, council goals workshop.
Remember, we have the workshop, which is,
July 2nd.
yeah,
July 2nd, yep.
it's July.
July 2nd. And so hopefully at that time, we'll be able to discuss our draft plan for our strategic plan, present that to council.
Yeah, and our agenda simply, I guess, Mark, from what you said, is gonna be, basically our strategic plan and goals.
Yeah, I think with the time that you have available, you're gonna want to focus as much attention as you can in having that dialogue with council about what you're proposing for your 2025 plan, and even by extension, the out years in your strategic plan, to give them that idea, but then to kind of get their feedback on budgeting for 2025, and if your plan is something that they're in tune with, or if you need to make some tweaks.
Right.
That really, I think, is what you're trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, and if they have some ideas or feedback, then certainly would be welcome we'd welcome those and.
And that
Get
that would
their
be a good time to discuss and have conversation too, addressing the pavilion playground replacement, like in kind, or renovation, a bigger project. So
Yeah.
things that are kind of up in the air with the commission, those are good ideas to bounce off of the council at that time
Mhm.
and get their feedback.
This really resonates with me to have something for the whole family, including a bike rack. All right,
So at our next meeting, will we just kind of go over what we're gonna do at the workshop, kind of?
yeah, what we'll do is she'll create our updated draft strategic plan. We'll try to massage that and fine tune that. So, and
And the fee schedule.
the fee schedule. And isn't our meeting with council like the day after our meeting here?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
so,
So we'll
uh,
take that and present that information.
yeah,
to
so
the
we may
council.
have to have some very quick
That's fine.
massaging
Yeah,
of the
I can do
plan.
that.
But we'll take that massaged strategic plan and they use that as our starting point of discussion with council and what we're looking at, and then talk about if we have some, what I would call big picture items, like the playground expansion, that's gonna probably have a large price tag, then
And
we need to put.
it will be a great opportunity for the commission to ask the council if they have any project ideas
Right.
that they have coming down the line that maybe we haven't heard about.
Right.
And also have discussions about, oh geez, I just drew a blank. Something else. It'll come to me.
Okay.
Is it at 6 o'clock before the?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, we have from 6 to 7, isn't that correct, Mark? We have an hour.
That's right.
So we'll have our meeting June 1st, and then the very next day, we'll all come back here to this room at 6 o'clock and have the kind of it's a public can come, but it's kind of an informal setting for the workshop where we can have some back and forth discussion. Any questions on that?
Oh, I know what I was
Oh.
gonna say. That's a good time too, to address any unfunded projects on their list, which I have printed here. So if their dog park is one, community pool, I think is actually on the CFP. Some of those projects that are already on their unfunded list, if there are questions of the commission, that's a great time to ask about those as well. And have some conversation.
Okay. Does anybody know right off the top of their head if they want to do the June 8th council report, or you want to think about it and email Jen? Okay. Everybody think about it and think about all this stuff. We have a lot to think about. This is an important time of year where we need to get a lot of information together in a short period of time, but Mark, remind me again when we need to get our budget to you by.
So we're going to open up the budget development process sometime in late July. So we would expect for you to start getting your stuff through Jen at around that time. But you've got at least the August meeting to
Okay.
finalize everything.
Yeah, because our August meeting is probably early.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get there. Thank you. And thanks for coming to these, Mark. It's
Sure.
really helpful. Appreciate it. Anything else on the agenda that anybody that for the greater good? Anything? Okay, we need a motion to dismiss. Adjourn, I guess dismiss sounds like school. Motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting
We have a second?
June 3rd.
I say.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
You were talking about badges.
Yes.
I don't have anything.